Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be testing out the new Fenty Beauty cream blushes and bronzer. I did pick up 2 of the cream blushes and 1 of the cream bronzers during the Sephora VIB spring sale. I did film a haul, so I will go ahead and link that in case you guys are interested. And I figured I would also play around with the MAC Selena eyeshadow palette. This is the Me Siento Muy Excited palette, which I'm so excited to try. I was such a huge Selena fan growing up, so this is pretty nostalgic to me, but I figured I would test this out in today's video just because I know this palette and just the entire MAC Selena collection is limited edition. I believe this is still in stock, but everything else is either sold out or there's just like a couple items left. So yeah, I figured I would test it out today, and I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. I am gonna do my eyes first today, but I figured I would speed up this portion of the video just to keep it more focused on the cream blushes and bronzer. So I'm just gonna play around with this, see what kind of look I get. I do love the packaging. It just reminds me of Selena. This really embodies her, especially the little jewels inspired by her bustier. Such beautiful packaging, and the shade selection I think is really pretty as well. And it does have this insert. It has Selena on it. I will go ahead and insert swatches as well, so I'm just gonna jump into it. Okay, I'm done with the eyeshadow. I also went ahead and applied my foundation, concealer, and brows. So as for the eyeshadow palette, I really like this so far. The matte shades do blend out really easily. The only one that I had a little bit of trouble with was this red shade, and the palette doesn't have any shade names, so I'm just gonna point to it, but the red shade was a little bit trickier to blend out. I didn't really have any major issues. It just took a little more time to blend out than the other mattes in the palette, but overall they're really buttery and smooth, and they do stay really nice and pigmented. As for the glittery metallic shades, I really like both of them. The only thing is that the pinky gold shade is a little bit more on the crumbly side, but I did end up wetting my brush to apply it to my inner corners, and I didn't have any issues with it, but it's just something to keep in mind. So overall, I do really like this palette. I think it is worth it, especially if you're a Selena fan like I am. I'm not sure if they're gonna be restocking this again since this was the second restock, so just letting you know. Okay, so moving on to the Fenty Beauty cream blushes and bronzer. I did pick up one of the bronzers in the shade Macchiato. Just looking at it in the pan, it does look very similar to my Milk Makeup matte bronzer in the shade Baked, which is my current favorite cream bronzer. I do reach for that one all the time. It's just the perfect cream bronzer for me. I did go ahead and compare them. I also swatched the Fenty Beauty Matchsticks in the shade Mocha. That one is more on the cool side and the formula is a bit drier, so I just never reach for it. Now, as far as the claims of both the bronzer and the cream blush, they do say that they're sheer, buildable, they melt into the skin, they're sweat and water resistant, which I'm kind of surprised by since they are such a creamy texture. They also claim to not feel sticky or greasy, so we shall see. I am going to be applying them with both a sponge and a brush just to see the difference in application. Okay, so I'm just going to dip straight into the bronzer. I'm taking my Wet n Wild sponge, which is my current favorite makeup sponge. Okay, so that pretty much took no effort at all. It was super quick and easy to blend. I really like the shade as well. It does look a lot like the Milk Makeup Matte Bronzer in the shade Baked, like I've said about 100 times. But yeah, it's just super creamy and I was expecting this to be a little bit more sheer. Maybe I dipped my sponge into the bronzer way more than I thought I did, but it looks really, really nice. I'm gonna take a little bit on my jawline. I'm gonna go ahead and build it up a little bit more just to see how buildable it is. Okay, I really like that. I feel like it kind of dries down quickly as well. And maybe that's why it's sweat and water resistant. Just in my experience, sweat and water resistant makeup products tend to dry down quickly. Once they set, they are usually harder to continue to blend out. So hopefully it looks well blended because sometimes when I'm looking in my mirror, it looks okay. And then when I go to edit, it looks like splotchy or just not blended enough. But I think it looks really good. Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and try it with a brush on my left side. So I like using a dual fiber brush. This is the one that I use with my Milk Makeup bronzer. It just picks up the right amount of product and I don't feel like I overdo it. So I'm gonna dip straight into the bronzer. I almost feel like I got more pigment on the sponge side for some reason. Maybe I just picked up way more. So I like to stipple it on first and then I start blending it. I'm kind of liking the brush side a little more. Do I don't know. I feel like I picked up way more product on the sponge side, so it doesn't look quite as sheer. It does look a lot more sheer on this side, but I did pick up a little more product now, and I'm gonna start building it up. I don't know why, but I expected to like the sponge side way more than the brush side. Because normally with my Milk Makeup one, I do use a sponge. So I was expecting to like this one more with a sponge as well. But right now, I think I definitely prefer the brush side. Okay, so far I do really like this bronzer. I like how creamy it is. It did blend out really easily, but again, I do prefer the brush side. I think the shade is perfect for me. I was originally gonna pick up the shade Butter Biscuit, but I'm glad that I didn't. I think that one leans a little bit more cool, so I think this one is perfect for me. I think in the summer, I am gonna have to build it up a little bit more, but right now it's just like the perfect bronzer shade. It's like a light medium warm bronzer. It also doesn't feel tacky on my skin or anything. I think it might have dried down by now. So I'm gonna move on to the cream blushes. Like I said, I picked up the shade Rose Latte and Petal Poppin. I did insert swatches comparing these to a few other cream blushes that I have in my collection. Most of the blushes in the shade range are pretty bright. I feel like they went for more like spring, summer, bright shades. So I think I'm gonna apply both of these with a brush just because I do prefer the way the bronzer applied with a brush. So I'm gonna take Rose Latte using that same dual fiber brush from Real Techniques. I did go ahead and wipe it off on a paper towel. So here is the shade Rose Latte. This one is the most neutral shade out of all of the blushes in the shade range. It does look a tiny bit deep for me just looking at it in the pan, but I'm gonna go really lightly with my application. So again, I'm just dipping straight into the blush. Oh. That is not as sheer as what I was expecting. Okay. I'm just gonna take my sponge and tap over it. Okay, it did tone it down quite a bit. Okay, so I'm not loving this shade. I feel like it pulls a little too red on me. Maybe I went in with too much. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this shade, but I don't think it looks terrible either. As far as the formula goes, I do really like the way it applied. It was super easy to blend. I think it applied nicely and I really like the glow that it's giving my cheeks. So moving on to Petal Poppin', I'm gonna take my E.L.F. Beautifully Precise Dual Fiber Brush. And I'm gonna try to go in lightly with this one because they do seem to be more pigmented than what I thought. Ooh, that is really pretty. Okay, so I do prefer the way this brush applied it. I think it just applies it more evenly. I do prefer this one for the bronzer. So even though this one is really pretty, I don't know, I kind of wish I had a more neutral shade. Again, that's just my preference. I don't normally go for bright blush shades. I like how they do easily tone down when you go over them with a sponge. I feel like Rose Latte does pull a little too red on me. I feel like this is what my cheeks look like when I get really red. Since I do have sensitive skin, my cheeks tend to flush very easily, and I feel like this is a shade that they turn. I definitely think I prefer Petal Poppin', which I'm kind of surprised. I was expecting to like Rose Latte a lot more. This one doesn't pull reddish the way this one does, of course, because this one is more of a bright, warm pink shade. I guess I'm gonna have to keep playing with these, but right now, even though I like the formula, I don't love the way these shades look on my skin. So far, I do prefer the bronzer way more than the blushes. I think the formula on both the bronzer and the blushes is pretty much identical, but so far I do prefer the bronzer. So that is everything for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if there's anything you'd like me to review in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.